Ever since I was in kindergarten, I wanted to be a children's book illustrator. And if you went into my kindergarten class all those years ago, when the teacher was asking, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I would have raised my hand and said, "Children's book illustrator." And now that it's my job, it's even better than I thought it would be because I can wake up in the morning, have my breakfast with Joe, then I feed my chickens, and then I sit down and I get to draw all day long into the night sometimes too. It's the best job in the world that I could imagine. When I go out to my mailbox or look at my email, the question kids ask me the most is how do I get ideas for my books? And I would say that that's because they are writing their own stories or they're imagining a story in pictures like I do. So I would like to tell you how I got the idea for Gingerbread Friends. I'm going to draw you a picture. I'm going to make it like a drawing lesson. So children, if you can't see that easel, maybe while I'm talking you can scoot down to a place where you can see the easel because I will be giving you a drawing lesson. And then I want to say a few words about your creativity, and then it will be time for the book signing. The whole thing will take between 15 and 20 minutes. And if you have any questions, save them for when we're face-to-face at the book signing, because then I can give you my complete attention and try to give you the answer. When I was little, my parents read to me a lot, and one of the stories that they read us was The Gingerbread Boy. It's a traditional story. It's probably over 100 years old, but it usually involves somebody baking in the oven and cooking either a gingerbread boy or a corn cake or a pancake. But what happens is they open the oven up too soon, and whatever it is, usually it's gingerbread because they look like, are shaped like people, comes flying out. It's alive, and it starts immediately taunting the baker and saying, "Catch, you can't catch me," or "Catch me if you can," and running off. And of course, everybody starts a merry chase, and more people are added. And then finally, the gingerbread baby gets his comeuppance when he meets a smart fox that snaps him up and eats him up. Now, I love that story because I love to bake, and I love the idea that you put all these ingredients out on the counter. Could be flour, eggs, butter, spices, and they just look like nothing when they're there. But then you stir them all together in the right ingredients and the right measurements. You put your oven on, you roll it out into dough and cookie cut them and put them in, and then after about 8 minutes you smell this delicious smell. You open up the oven and there's something completely transformed. It's cookies, or it could be bread, or it could be a pie. But it's always amazing to me how that takes place. It starts as these ingredients and then it becomes something wonderful. I think that's what in the olden days what people liked about this story is they were amazed at that transformation, and then they wanted to add a little extra, so they made whatever was baking come alive. So I thought that it was a little bit harsh when that gingerbread boy got eaten by the fox, because he could talk, he could walk around, and he actually basically acted like I did when I was little. I had two little sisters, and I loved them, but sometimes I would tease them, and I loved to go on adventures, and I was a little bit mischievous sometimes, a lot like the gingerbread baby. So I thought, well, I think I'm going to tell this story but give it a slightly different ending and not have the gingerbread baby get eaten up and have him have a different kind of ending, which is Maddie, the little boy, in the borders, is making gingerbread, and he makes a gingerbread house. And when he puts it on the snow, that gingerbread baby is so curious that he has to go inside the house. And that's when the little boy picks up the whole house and brings him back to his room. So he does get caught, but he doesn't get eaten. And on the last page of the first book that I wrote, Gingerbread Baby, he's there in his house. He has everything he could want. He has food and toys, and he has the love of the little boy, but he doesn't have any friends of his own. He doesn't have anybody that's a cookie. So that's when I decided to write this book. And if you open it up, it starts out with Maddie, the little boy, has gone off to go out with his friends, and they're skiing and skating out in the snow, and Gingerbread Baby is looking out the window and feeling sorry for himself. Why doesn't he have a friend? But he's a little guy of action. So the next thing you know, there's his pet rooster. He harnesses up his rooster, who pulls his chair sleigh, and he's off to go to the town where he's going to look and see if he can find a friend. And the place he starts to look is in a bakery, because there's going to maybe be other cookies there. And sure enough, there are other cookies, but they are not going to talk back to him, because each time he sees one, he sings a little song about please be his friend and how much he wants a friend. But they don't answer back because they're not magic at all. And it goes on and on the same way. He even asks some meringue swans if they'll be his friend, and they don't say anything either. Now, if you look very carefully in the borders, and I do borders when I just have too many ideas, you can see that there's a recipe there, and the recipe is for gingerbread, and that you can see that the little boy Matty is back at work making something wonderful, and you can look there and find the clues of what that wonderful thing is. Meanwhile, in the bakery, Matty is exhausted. He's made a mess of the bakery, and the baker and his wife are looking around for whoever's been doing it. They probably see a lot of like little footprints in the pink frosting. And he goes into a little hole in the wall just his size. It turns out he goes to sleep there. That's where a mouse lives. And he wakes up when one of his marshmallow pom-poms is being nibbled on by Mother Mouse. Now, there's two animals in this book that come from my life, and one is the rooster, and you can see it in my backdrop. That's a white-crested Polish rooster, and that's the kind of chicken I raised. And that's Louie, one of my roosters. He's probably one of my older roosters. He's about 6 or 7 now. But I put him in my book when I saw this old poultry book, and it showed a Jersey Giant, which is a kind of big, big chicken. It's a breed of chicken that's very large. And in this olden days pictures, this Jersey Giant was pulling a farmer on his cart. You know, the cart had wheels. It wasn't a sleigh, but he was a pretty strong rooster. And I've learned from taking care of chickens that they'll do a lot of things for food. And they probably trained this chicken to pull that cart. He was a strong one. So I thought if a Jersey Giant can pull a farmer, then a white-crested Polish could certainly pull a gingerbread baby in a sleigh. And then the other animal is the mouse. When I was doing the first book, I had this little basket next to my art desk, and it had gingerbread men in it. Because I would cook them, and then just as they're coming out of the oven and they're still a little bit warm, then I'd move their arms and legs around so that they would look like they were running, and then I would sketch them and put them in my book. Well, this basket made my art studio smell delicious, but I noticed that all those gingerbread are getting lower and lower and lower. I thought, what's going on? And finally, I picked the basket up because the top one was perfect. There was a little hole in it, and a mouse had been getting in and eating them from the bottom up when I wasn't looking. That mouse was doing it. So I had to have a heart trap and put that mouse out in the backwoods. And after that, there was nobody eating the gingerbread. But I'm telling you that because kids, when you have something interesting happen to you, or just plain curious, or you see a picture that fascinates you, just think about it for a second and then put it away in your mental notebook, because it could be part of a story that you're going to write someday. Almost all of my stories have some little incident or picture from my mind that I had when I was little, or even an experience when I had as a grown-up that I put in my books. And sometimes it will form part of the puzzle that is the story that I will write. Well, Gingerbread Baby runs out of the bakery, and he's getting chased by everybody. And on his way back home, who should he meet but the fox? Now, this is the same fox that was told in the traditional story. I wanted to just remember back to him because I did like that story, even though I didn't like the ending. And in this page, it shows the fox taking a great leap to try to get that rooster and Gingerbread Baby. But what he didn't think about was that a chicken is a bird, and they have wings and can fly. And I know that because all my chickens get way up on their roosts on the top of my rafters in my little barn at night. So I knew they were very good flyers. And Gingerbread Baby jumped on board. He's a smart little guy. He knows how to fend for himself. And they make it over the fence and back home. But that's what we would call an anticlimax, because he's home, but he still doesn't have any friends. And when he gets back to his house, he really thinks about that, and he starts to have a little tear coming down from his eye because he's really wanted to have a friend, and he hadn't had much success. And through his tears, he looks up and he sees that up on the ceiling there's a little uh, trap door, and there's a ladder going up there. And on the ladder, on every rung, there's a little cupcake as if asking him to keep walking and go up there. And he does, and this is what he finds. What Maddie has been making in the borders on the whole while he's been down in the village. It's a gingerbread village with all kinds of rides to go on and a hot air balloon, and there's, best of all, boy gingerbread, girl gingerbread people. There's horses, there's dogs, there's a peppermint puppy, and there's even a stork on its nest. And I put that there because when I was doing the mitten, it's a Ukrainian story, and one of my Ukrainian friends told me to put a stork with a nest on its chimney on Nikki's house, and that was good luck. So I decided to put it in my book all these years later to remember back to the mitten. And that's the happy ending. Cute. And I'd like to draw that gingerbread baby for you and make it an art lesson. And before I start, I want to do a demonstration for you, because when you're drawing, it could be an animal or it could be a person. Pay the most attention when you're drawing that character's eyes, because that's where our emotions are. You can, like, let's say you haven't seen your friends, or maybe it's your sister, brother, or your mom or dad like the whole day, and you come home and you see them, and you can tell so much just by looking at their eyes. Because let's say somebody has just had a nap and their eyes are kind of like halfway, their eyelids are kind of closed and they're looking sleepy. You say, oh, they just woke up from a nap. You'd learn that from a clue. Or you could see maybe their eyes are all scrunched together because they just stubbed their toe and they're really mad about it. It really hurts. Ow, 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 ow. And you just look at their eyes and they know something happened. Or maybe it's your brother or sister and they look all excited and they've got like a sparkle in their eye, and you know they have something special to tell you. Maybe they just found out you're going to go on a travel trip with your parents and go to maybe another part of the state and go swimming at a special place, or go to some relatives or something, and I can't wait to tell you about it. And that's just from looking at their eyes. And so my demonstration, where I lose all my dignity, I'm going to prove this to you, because I'm going to cover up my face, except for my eyes. I let you see them. I'm going to turn around, and then I'm going to think of something. It could be happy, sad, scared, surprised, any of those things. And then when I turn around, I want you to guess what it is just by looking at my eyes. Are you ready to do it? And you don't have to raise your hands. You can just say out loud what you think I'm thinking. So here comes number one. Happy. You got it. And you didn't see my smile. You just saw my eyes. Okay, here comes number two. Yes, you got sad. Happy and sad. Okay, let's see if you can get three in a row. Yes, you got surprise. Okay, number four is very hard because it's two different things at once. And humans are very complex creatures. Sometimes we can think of two different emotions or have two different emotions at the same times. Because have you ever been excited but a little bit afraid? Or you could be mad but you're really surprised. Or you could be sad but peaceful. Or you could be happy and sad at the same time, because that's the way we are. We're complicated. So here comes another one, and see if you can guess this one. I'll try to be a good actress. You are very good, because you guessed surprised and scared, and I was trying to look astonished. I was trying to pretend that there was a spaceship with aliens on this side of the room, and there was a dinosaur on that side of the room. So you did very well on that. And that is, don't you think astonished is a combo of those two things, as being surprised, curious, a little bit worried and scared. So that was excellent. So when I draw Gingerbread Baby, I think I'm going to give him an expression of being a little bit like he's thinking up something that might be a little bit rascally. That's the way I'm going to make him look. And when I'm home in my art studio, it takes me an hour just to do an inch. I'm using my watercolors.
So today, to save time, I'm going to use my markers. So my drawing won't look exactly like it does in my books. But it will, I think it will help you learn something about drawing. And I'm thinking, too, that you could probably teach me something about drawing because kids are some of the best artists ever. So there's his round head. And then he's going to have one hand out. And when I was designing what I wanted Gingerbread Baby to look like, I made sure that he had thumbs on his hands, not just paddles, because I want him to look like he's expressing himself. Then he puts those thumbs in different places during the book. So those are the kind of decisions that I would be making when I'm drawing my first sketches of him. And he's kind of leaping up as if he's going to go someplace. And drawing a cookie is pretty easy because if you make a mistake, it just looks like when cookies come out of the oven, sometimes they're not quite in proportion. You know, when you cut them out with a cutter, they look one way, and after they've been cooked, they look another way. And then he has just got two little eyes, which we'll keep very simple, that I'll come back to. And he's got a red hot for a nose. And I'm going to make his smile a little bit lopsided because I want him to look like he's got some thoughts behind that face. And it's a little bit, I don't know the word to describe it. He's ready for action, I guess would be the word. And then he has two buttons coming down the front. And he's got his pom-poms and his shoes. And then I'm going to draw his Peppermint Puppy. And I had a stamp made of the Peppermint Puppy, and I'm going to put it on your books today at the book signing. If you would tell me if you don't want it, because I think it's kind of cute. And he's made out of a big stick of peppermint, but his face is made out of gingerbread. And there's a stick of peppermint, because this is going to be very useful in telling you some of the ways. I'm going to try shading on him, and he's the perfect kind of shape to show shading on. And there's his little feet, which ends in jelly beans, which is a way I can get some nice colors in. And then he's got a little frosting tail. So there's the black outline, and now it looks kind of flat. And I'm going to work with it for a minute and change a little bit of that. I'm going to start with those eyes, and I'm going to color them all in black, except for I'm going to leave a little white spot on the upper corner. And if you can see a person or an animal, then you can also notice that they have a little sparkle in their eye. And if you look at the person next to you, you'll see the light in the room reflected in their eye. And that's because our eyes are shiny and our skin is less shiny. So that's what you can, if you want to make your picture look realistic, you can put a little sparkle in their eye. And then now he just looks like a kind of a happy guy, right? I'm going to make the top of his face almost look like his eyes are mad. And with a mad top and a smiling bottom, it's going to make him look a little bit mischievous and rascally. See how that works? And then I'm going to also put a little bit of circles under his eyes. Because I want him to look vulnerable. I want people to care about him. He's rascally, but inside, you can tell he's a good guy. And I just want him to look a little bit like he's young and has a little bit of a circle under his eye as if he might have just woken up from a nap. And then I'll put one eyebrow up here. And you call that cocking your eyebrow I don't do it very well, but you put one eye up like this, one eyebrow up and one down. Yeah, and it kind of means you're thinking of something and you're not telling what it is. And that's the way Gingerbread Baby is. Now the puppy is his sidekick. He follows him around, and he's just looking worried because he doesn't know what the Gingerbread Baby is going to do next. So just by that tiny little line, he goes from just being vacant to, oh no, what's going to happen? And now I can color him in. And lots of times people that come to my signing, they come because they want to be artists. Or their parents bring their children because they want to be artists. And they ask me what kind of art materials to bring their very talented child. And I say one of the options are these markers, which these ones are Prismacolor, but there are lots of different brands. But they have one thick end and one thin end. And they have lots of beautiful colors that you can put on, that you can layer. So I could put on this color, which is called terracotta, which is the color of a flower pot, but also works well for gingerbread. And you could use orange and brown and a light brown and get this color. Or I could take some other browns and yellows and mix it in on top of this terracotta color and get even a more sophisticated color. You can see how I've got some different colors in that Gingerbread Baby. Or even the fox is even a better example about blending some different colors to get shades. Because there's very few things in nature that come in just right out of the box, like red, yellow, blue, green. They usually have another color mixed in. And so that's a fun thing to experiment with, and that's why markers are a good tool to use for doing that experimenting. And the other thing to get, and if you do get markers, get the kind of paper that's very smooth on the surface, because what happens is the ink is drawn out of them if you have a surface that is toothy, that's what I call it, or rough, and then your markers don't last very long. So some paper, it doesn't have to be expensive, like typing paper is great for markers. Or, you know, the kind that you put in a copier. Now, when I'm drawing, I can do a texture just by the way I put the color on, like I'm doing little circles right now, and it kind of looks much more gingerbready than going back and forth like I did on the top. So think about that when you're doing your drawing, is just the way you put the color on can have an effect. And he's almost done. This is what takes the longest, is getting him all that gingerbready color. And then the Peppermint Puppy is going to get his face drawn in. And then what I would choose even over markers, which do have beautiful, brilliant colors, would be colored pencils. Because with a colored pencil, you have more of a chance to work with it. You're just using the pressure of doing it very lightly or darkly. You can change your lines and getting some interesting effects that way. But if you get the markers, one of the things I suggest, the pencils, is to get an electric pencil sharpener, because then you can just go zoop, and then you can get that nice sharp point on it, and you can get all the details. And when you put the details in, your picture becomes believable. Even if you're doing the surface of Mars or an imaginary place, it gives you all those little details that make it seem real. So his buttons are white, but I'm just doing the edge of them of a light gray so that they will look round. And then on the bottom of them, I'm deepening that a little bit, because I'm going to allow for the light source, which is, let's say the sun is shining above him. He's got three things that stick out: nose, buttons, and pom-poms. So the sun is going to be here, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a shadow under all of those. And while I've got my gray out, I'm also going to do the candy cane that makes up the Peppermint Puppy's body. And now this would take me a long time if I was home in my art studio. I'd be very meticulous about getting it to be very dark on the edge and then a little bit lighter as I went in. And you could use this technique whether you were drawing an animal or a person. If it was a blue animal, you could make it dark blue on the edge and getting to lighter blue. And I will also go underneath his pom-poms and underneath his buttons, so it looks like they're in shadow, underneath his nose. And now I'm just going to use the point of this and just do a little bit around his eyes. I think I'm going to give him a little bit of a surprised look, and also show his cheeks, because he is smiling and his cheeks are coming up. Now the shape of the eyes is really important, because when I was showing you all the faces, like when I smile, my cheeks come up from my smile, and then it makes my eyes look kind of squinty. And then if I'm surprised, my mouth is open, and it makes my eyes look rounder. So if you want to show a character looking surprised, you would make those rounder eyes. Or if you're mad, you not only do you have like a little line right here where your eyebrows are squinched together, but your eyes are more like slits. So the shape of the eyes is very important. And I'm going to make him look, oh boy, he's worried about what's going to come next. And then I'll get my red out to fill in some of their noses, because their noses are, those kind of candies called Red Hots. Those are the noses. Because when I was drawing Gingerbread Baby, everything on him had to go in the oven, because when he jumps out, no one has time to frost him. So I couldn't put all the cool frosting that I could as in Gingerbread Friends when Maddie makes the babies, and then he puts frosting on them to give them their clothes and stuff. And then when I put the red stripes on, I made them curved because these buttons are curved. And same goes with the stripes on Peppermint Puppy. They're going to be kind of curved around to show that this is a cylinder and not flat. So there's a thick stripe and then a thin stripe. A thick stripe and a thin stripe. And I would actually go to the store and get a piece of peppermint and look very closely at how it was made so I could draw it. And I noticed that sometimes when they made them, there'd be a little extra speck of red someplace. And then I'd leave a white place right in the middle because it reflects the light. So a lot of times there's a shine mark on it. Oh, I don't want to forget his nose. There it is. And then, last of all, do his feet, which are jelly beans. And I remembered when I was in nursery school, we got to do like a Native American headband, and we put our symbols on it. It got stapled, and we got to put it on our head, and then our teacher brought us 2 bags of feathers. One bag had every color of the rainbow, and there were some very beautiful colors, like I just learned from my crayon box. There was like magenta, which is like this pink. There was violet, which is a beautiful purple color. There was chartreuse, which was yellow with a little bit of green in it. And I really loved all those beautiful colors. But then there was another bag of, they were chicken feathers, but they had been dyed, that were white, but then they had a black tip on them that looked like an eagle feather. And I had a book about Native Americans at home, and I knew that the eagle was a sacred and revered bird for Native Americans. And so I had to decide which to choose, the beautiful colors or the authentic ones that would be close to what a person might really have. And I remember thinking you had to be one kind of the artist or the other. But now that I'm a children's book illustrator, I realized you don't have to choose, that you can do both. You can use your imagination and use bright colors and have fantastic ideas, like having cookies come alive. But then you can be realistic, too. Like I went to Switzerland to learn how the houses there would look, because I wanted the Gingerbread Baby to live in a country where they had these interesting houses that would look very pretty in the winter snow. So that part is really authentic. And then the cookie part is all made up. So that's called having an artistic license. It means you can do both at the same time. And everybody who's had markers knows how important it is to put the tops on tightly. Because if you don't, the next time you go back, they're all dried up. So here's another pink foot. And then last of all, we'll do the yellow, which is canary yellow. Now let's see what they call this color. They call it mulberry. But it's also, if it had a little bit more purple on it, I think they would call it magenta. And then here's canary yellow. And then this picture is done except for one important thing, which is an artist needs to sign their work. So I'm going to put Jan Brett, and I'm going to give it to the store because they invited me here, which has been a very happy experience. And then I put November 2008 because I wanted to tell you something about drawing, which is drawing is like learning to ride a bike or tying your shoe or brushing your teeth or playing a musical instrument, that the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I never had drawing lessons. I just kept practicing. So my challenge to you is in the next week or so, take some time to do a drawing and put your name in November 2008. And just keep practicing. You don't have to do it every day, but just keep doing some drawings. And then when the new year turns around to 2009, take that drawing and put the date on it and put them side by side. And I think you will be amazed at how much better you've gotten in just a couple of months from practicing. Lastly, I'd like you all to look at your finger and your thumb and look really closely, and you can see that you have like little lines there in your skin that make a pattern. They kind of wind around. That's your fingerprint. And do you know that everybody in the world has a different fingerprint and that no one has a fingerprint just like yours? Well, it is the same way when you draw a picture
or you write a story. Nobody can draw it like you or write that story like you because you have your own talents, a combination unlike anyone else's, plus you have experiences that no one else has had. Even your brothers and sisters don't have the same experiences as that you do. And that's why it's so important for you to, every once in a while, just turn off the television, get in a quiet place and put your art materials there, and try not to hear any other voices. Close the door so you're not hearing brothers and sisters and mom and dad or the radio, and listen for your own voice. And start to draw and give yourself about an hour. And I think at the end of the hour, you're just going to all of a sudden look down and say, wow, I did that. And not only will you have that happy feeling of creating something, but you'll have that feeling of knowing that no one else in the world could have done it just like you. So thank you very much for being such a good audience.